Gunfire cracked like lightning behind her, the echo chasing her down the sandstone ridge as Clara Mae Holloway tumbled forward, landing hard on her knees. Her breath came ragged and raw, the taste of blood thick in her mouth. She bit down a scream and pressed her palm to the wound in her shoulder, warm and wet, pulsing with every heartbeat. The bullet had gone clean through, but that was the only kindness the night had offered. The desert swallowed her footsteps as she staggered forward, the moon above casting silver light on the vast emptiness. The wind howled like a warning, dry and cruel. Somewhere behind her, men's voices echoed in drunken bursts of laughter and rage. Her name spat like a curse. Clara Mae, ain't nowhere left to run, girl. She ducked behind a cluster of scrub brush, her breath hitching. She could still smell the smoke from her barn, still hear the crackling timbers and the angry roar of men who once nodded at her in town, smiled as she passed, tipped their hats like gentlemen. Now they carried ropes and rifles, lit torches with the same hands that had once lifted her water barrels. She pressed her back against the sandstone, blinking against the tears. Her other hand cradled her belly beneath her frayed dress. Just a swell now, barely visible, but real, so achingly real. "I won't let them kill you," she whispered, voice shaking. "I won't." The pain lanced through her shoulder again, white-hot and blinding. She bit down on her lip until she tasted iron. The voices drifted farther, curses and grumbles dissolving into the night. They'd lost her for now, but not for long. She had to move. Somewhere safe. Somewhere out of reach. Her boots scraped against the rocks as she climbed, every movement screaming protest. The ridge ahead loomed tall and ragged. Beyond it lay nothing but wild country. No roads, no towns, no names. Just miles of God-forsaken desert and stories of those who'd vanished in it. She crested the ridge and paused. Down below, a wash snaked through the canyon, choked with mesquite and shadow. She could hide there, rest, think. She started down, half sliding, half falling, until she reached the bottom and collapsed against the cool sand. The stars overhead pulsed like embers. She hadn't meant for any of this. She'd come to Broken Mesa with hope, with a husband, with dreams of a quiet life, teaching letters to dust-covered children, raising chickens, growing herbs in clay pots. Jed had been restless, but kind at first. The war had hollowed him out, but she'd filled the silence with patience and tea and lullabies sung in the dark, until the land turned against them. Crops withered. The mine dried up. Jed grew mean. Then he disappeared. They said she'd cursed him, that a woman alone, still smiling, still proud, was a danger, that the devil whispered to pretty widows who didn't cry enough. The sheriff had come with kind eyes and an iron voice, asked her questions that weren't questions, offered protection that smelled like threat. And then the barn burned. The well was poisoned. The townsfolk gathered. It wasn't a trial. It was a verdict. A woman alone, accused by whispers and superstition. They tied her to the post and threw words like stones. Witch, murderer, hexbringer. One of them, a boy she taught to read, had trembled as he raised the torch. She saw the moment he recognized her, the moment he did it anyway. But the rope slipped. Her shoulder took the bullet meant for her heart. She ran. A twig snapped. Clara bolted upright, hand on the knife hidden in her boot. Her breath froze in her lungs. Just a jackrabbit. It stared for a beat, then darted into the brush. She let the blade fall to her side and exhaled slow. She needed to move. Sitting still was death, blood loss, discovery, or both. She stood, legs trembling, and followed the curve of the wash, footsteps careful, quiet. Every whisper of wind against the brush made her jump. Her mind drifted to Jed again, his boots on the floorboards, his distant gaze. The day he left without a word and didn't come back. Did he fall into a ravine? Did someone push him? Did he run from the baby he never wanted? Or had he known what was coming? Clara pressed forward, teeth clenched. Her belly was beginning to cramp. Not badly. Not yet. But enough. A shadow moved ahead, tall, shifting. She dropped to a crouch, heart pounding. A tree? A man? Her fingers found the knife again. Closer. Closer still. It was just a saguaro cactus, arms raised in solemn mockery. She laughed once, sharp, bitter, and winced as pain lanced through her ribs. "Get it together," she whispered. By the time dawn began to paint the horizon in strokes of fire and rose, she had covered several miles. The bleeding had slowed, but every step sent sparks up her spine. She found a small cave tucked beneath a ledge and crawled inside, dragging a thorny branch behind her to mask the entrance. It smelled of dust and lizards, but it was dry, sheltered. She laid her head against the stone and closed her eyes. Sleep came in fits, scattered with dreams. Jed laughing under a blood-red sky. Her mother singing a lullaby with her mouth sewn shut. A noose tightening around her wrist like a lover's hand. She woke with a jolt to silence. Her stomach growled. Her mouth was dry as bone, but she was alive. She rolled onto her back and stared at the jagged ceiling above. They thought she was dead, or soon would be. Let them. She would rest, heal, then find out the truth about Jed, about the sheriff, about what really happened to the land, to her life, to the woman she used to be. The child stirred inside her like a whisper. They tried to kill her. They tried to bury her in fear and fire. But Clara Mae Holloway was still breathing, and that was a problem for someone. She grinned, teeth bared to the dark. Let them hunt. Let them lie. Let them dig her grave again. Next time, she'd be the one holding the shovel. The sun rose with a vengeance, burning the horizon gold and white as Clara Mae stepped out of the cave. Her movements were stiff, deliberate. Blood had dried in a black crust across her shoulder and down her sleeve, the pain now dull and deep like an old bruise. The desert around her stretched for miles in every direction, an ocean of dust, stone, and thorn. Nothing stirred, not a bird, not a breeze. She wrapped the remains of her shawl tighter around herself and kept walking, following the rocky edge of the dry wash. Her boots, once brown leather, were now the color of scorched earth, soles half split. Each step sent a quiet ache up her spine, but she pushed on. She had to, not just for herself anymore. The baby shifted again, a flutter in her belly like a moth in a jar. She placed her hand there instinctively, eyes scanning the distance for anything, shade, water, shelter, life. By midday, the heat turned cruel. Her skin burned beneath her clothes. Her lips cracked open in angry splits. She could barely swallow. The canteen she'd grabbed during the escape had run dry at dawn, and now every breath tasted of grit and fire. She staggered to a stop beneath a crooked ironwood tree, the shade a pitiful sliver. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the ground and leaned back against the rough bark. Her vision blurred. The desert pulsed and shimmered in front of her like it was breathing. Something moved in that shimmer. A horse. No, two. She blinked, tried to sit up straighter. One rider, dark against the sun, was heading toward her. The second horse was tethered and empty. Panic surged, hot and bright. She fumbled for her knife, but her fingers were numb, clumsy. The blade clattered against the rocks. The rider didn't speed up or shout, just approached at a slow, steady pace, dust rising in curls behind him. He stopped 20 paces away and dismounted in a single, practiced motion. Older, maybe 50, with sun-leathered skin and long black hair pulled back in a rawhide tie. His face was carved from stone, no expression, no hurry. He looked down at her and said nothing. Clara clenched her jaw. "I don't want trouble." "I know," he said. His voice was low even. "You already got it." She tried to rise. Her legs gave out. The man moved toward her without urgency, crouched beside her, and lifted her wrist. His touch was clinical, measuring her pulse, then her eyes. "I ain't dying," she rasped. He looked her over again. "Not yet." She recoiled as he reached into his saddlebag, but he only pulled out a canteen. He held it out without a word. She hesitated, then snatched it greedily, tipping it back. The water was warm but clean. It brought tears to her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, wiping her mouth. "I didn't say I was." He stood again, adjusting the saddle on the spare horse. "But I'm not going to leave a woman to rot in the sun, either. I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to. He cut her off with a look that silenced her. You're in the devil's backyard now. If he don't get you, the scorpions will. He turned his back and began walking toward the horse. Wait. She pulled herself upright, gripping the tree. Who are you? Gray Fox, he said, without turning. Get on the horse or don't. Either way, I'm riding. Clara stared at the animal. It looked sturdy, dust-colored, and patient. Her legs trembled. Every bone in her body felt like it was made of broken glass. I can't lift myself up, she said. Gray Fox came back. He didn't offer a hand. He picked her up like a sack of flour and tossed her over the saddle with quiet ease. She let out a hiss of pain, but didn't cry out. He mounted his own horse and rode ahead. They didn't speak for miles. The desert blurred into scrub and stone, rising hills and gullies cut by long-forgotten floods. Occasionally, he'd toss her another sip of water. Clara didn't ask where they were going. She barely had the strength to hold on. By late afternoon, they reached a narrow cleft in the rocks that widened into a hidden canyon. Shade, green patches of desert grass, a trickle of water running from an underground spring. It felt like another world. He helped her down again, more gently this time. Why, she asked. Why bring me here? Gray Fox busied himself making a fire. You're being hunted. I saw tracks this morning. 6 men. Horses. They were following blood. She tensed. They'll find me. He shook his head. They'll try. They won't. I don't even know you. You don't need to. Clara watched him for a long time, studying the way he moved, carefully, deliberately. Everything about him was quiet, controlled. Not friendly, but not cruel. Why'd you leave me water? She asked. He paused, then shrugged. My mother was white. She'd done the same. That quieted her. She ate what little food he gave her, jerky, mesquite beans, a strip of dried prickly pear. Her stomach cramped, but she kept it down. They sat in silence by the fire as the canyon darkened around them. Stars flickered overhead, and night sounds filled the space between them. Coyotes yipping, owls calling, wind whispering over the rocks. Finally, she said, I'm pregnant. Gray Fox didn't react. 3 months, she added. Maybe a little more. Still nothing. I didn't tell them, she whispered. Back in Broken Mesa. Didn't think they deserved to know. He looked up at her now. That why they tried to kill you? She laughed, bitter and dry. No. They just needed someone to blame when the land turned sour. My husband vanished. Sheriff said I poisoned the water. Said I hexed the town. You didn't. Of course not. Gray Fox grunted. They don't care if it's true. Only that it feels true. She nodded, her throat tight. What do you believe? He met her eyes. I believe you're still breathing. That counts for something. Silence fell again, thick and heavy. She wrapped her arms around herself. The fire crackled. She watched the flames and thought of Jed, his tired hands, his short temper, the way he used to look past her like she wasn't even there. I don't think he ran, she said suddenly. I think they killed him. Took our land. Sheriff always wanted it. Gray Fox stirred the fire with a stick. Then you have a reason to live. That's more than most out here. Clara stared into the embers, her jaw set. She didn't want revenge. Not really. She wanted to be free. Free of fear. Free of the lies they told about her. Free to raise her child without someone else's boots on her neck. But maybe vengeance was the road to get there. Gray Fox stood. Sleep. You'll need your strength. Will you be here when I wake up? He didn't answer. Just nodded once and melted into the shadows. Clara curled on the ground beside the fire, the heat licking at her chilled skin. Her eyes drifted closed, and for the first time in days, she didn't dream of nooses or fire. She dreamed of water, of roots, of something green growing in the dust. And she knew, when she woke, she wouldn't run anymore. Not from them. Not from herself. The horse's hooves struck the dry earth like muffled thunder as Clara rode into Broken Mesa just before dusk. A veil of dust clung to her like a second skin, her face shaded by the brim of Jed's old hat, pulled low. Her wounded arm was wrapped in fresh linen, her shoulders straight despite the ache radiating through her body. The town hadn't changed, same warped storefronts, same sagging awnings, same crooked church bell that hadn't rung for anything holy in years. But Clara Mae Holloway had changed. The people on the street paused as she passed. A few turned away, as if seeing a ghost. Others froze, uncertain whether to run or bow. She saw it in their eyes, recognition, guilt, maybe even fear. She said nothing, kept her gaze fixed on the road ahead. A boy stepped forward from a porch, wide-eyed and pale. She remembered his name, Eli. He'd handed her apples once, smiling through a gap in his teeth. Now, he held a bucket of nails and stared at her like she might vanish again. Clara stopped her horse beside him and leaned slightly. "Tell your mama to bolt the doors tonight." He blinked. "Why?" She gave him a long look. "Because I'm home." She spurred the horse forward, leaving him with that and nothing more. Her destination wasn't the sheriff's office. Not yet. First, she needed answers, and there was only one person who might have them: Martha. The house sat on the north end of town, behind the chapel, painted a pale, flaking yellow. Jed's sister had always kept it tidy, a little too tidy, like order could hide the poison under the floorboards. Clara dismounted and climbed the steps, each footfall deliberate. Her knuckles rapped the door twice before it opened. Martha stood framed in the doorway, her graying hair tied back, an apron dusted in flour. Her eyes widened when she saw Clara, and for a moment neither woman spoke. "You look like hell," Martha said finally. Clara's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "And you look like you've been waiting for a ghost." Martha stepped aside without another word. Clara entered. The parlor was just as she remembered: stiff chairs, embroidered cushions, a portrait of their mother above the mantel like a warning. The air smelled of cinnamon and secrets. "I heard what they said," Martha began. "I didn't believe it, not at first." "You were there," Clara cut in, her voice low. "I saw you, holding a torch." Martha flinched. "I thought Jed was gone. Everyone was talking, saying things." Clara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You don't get to hide behind everyone. You always did what suited you. And I want to know what suited you this time." Martha sank into a chair, hands trembling in her lap. "It was Rickley. He said Jed made a deal behind your back. Something about the land, mineral rights. The mine was supposed to be empty, but Jed found something. Gold, maybe. Something worth killing for." Clara's breath caught. "And the sheriff? He wanted it. All of it. Said you'd sign it over after Jed left. When you didn't, he started spreading stories." Clara stood, pacing now, her boots thudding softly against the wooden floor. "He killed Jed." "I don't know that." "You do." Clara's voice was ice. "You know it. And you did nothing." "I was scared." "So was I." Martha's voice cracked. "What are you going to do?" Clara turned back to her, eyes glinting like flint. "What they taught me to." She left the house without slamming the door. No need. Silence said more. The mine sat just west of town, its entrance boarded up and posted with a crooked sign: "No trespassing. Property of Broken Mesa territory." Clara dismounted, tying her horse loosely to a mesquite post, and approached the boards. They were nailed with purpose, strong, reinforced, but not strong enough. She pried one loose with the back of her knife and slipped inside. The air was stale, thick with coal dust and forgotten voices. She moved carefully, lantern in hand, down into the tunnels. Her footfalls echoed. The deeper she went, the more she saw the truth: fresh pick marks in the stone, discarded tools still warm with use. This mine hadn't dried up. It had been stolen. At the far end, she found crates, dynamite, spare rope, ledgers sealed with the sheriff's stamp. Clara ran a finger along the box tops, thoughtful. Then she opened one. Enough firepower to wake the whole damn town. She didn't want a war. But peace had been taken from her, stripped with rope and fire and silence. Now she had to make noise. By nightfall, she'd returned to the room above the livery where she and Jed had once slept. The key still worked. She lit a lamp and began to write, dipping a pen into an old inkwell with steady hands. "Dear child," she began, If these are the only words you ever know from me, I want them to matter." Her letter to the unborn was plain, unpoetic. Just truth. A confession. A promise. A story she hoped they'd never need, but might one day understand. She folded the paper, sealed it, and slipped it beneath the floorboard by the bed. Then she checked her weapons. The sawed-off shotgun sat heavy in her lap. A pistol nestled under her belt. Dynamite strapped in her saddlebag. She wasn't reckless, just prepared. As the town slept, Clara moved like a shadow, placing charges along the mine's entrance and the storehouse beside it. She wasn't there to destroy the town, just the lies it was built on. By the time the first rooster crowed, she was back in the town square, standing in the middle of the street like she belonged there. Sheriff Rickley stepped out of the saloon with 2 deputies flanking him. He stopped when he saw her. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. Clara didn't move. "Funny," she said. "That's what I said the night you tried to hang me." Rickley's hand twitched near his holster. "You should have stayed gone." "I tried, but I kept waking up." He took a step forward. "You really think folks will back you after everything?" "No," she said. "I don't need them to. I just need you to listen." He chuckled. "To what?" "To this." She raised her hand and pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the silence like judgment. Fire bloomed behind the town. Smoke curled into the morning sky. Rickley spun, jaw slack. "The mine is gone," Clara said. "Like Jed. Like the truth you buried under dirt and fear." He turned back, reaching for his gun, but Clara was faster. The blast of her shotgun echoed off the storefronts. One deputy dropped. The other ran. Rickley fell to his knees, clutching his gut, eyes wide with disbelief. "You bitch." Clara stepped closer, breath steady. "Say it again. Louder. So everyone can hear." He wheezed, gurgled, collapsed face first into the dust. Clara lowered her weapon and looked around. Curtains twitched. Doors cracked open. Faces emerged, hushed, stunned. She turned and walked away without a word. She didn't stay to explain. She didn't need to. They had watched her die once. Now they could live with her ghost. The sky over Broken Mesa turned the color of dried blood as the sun slipped behind the buttes, casting long, uneasy shadows across the town square. Smoke from the shattered mine still curled into the evening air, staining the horizon like the memory of a wound. Clara stood in the center of it all, blood on her shirt, grit in her teeth, and steel in her eyes. The sheriff lay dead behind her. His badge, tarnished and crooked, had rolled to her feet. She stepped over it like it was nothing more than a bottle cap, unworthy of memory. The townsfolk crept from their homes in slow, murmuring waves, some in awe, some in fear, a few with shame written plain across their faces. No one spoke. No one dared. Not yet. Clara walked past them all, headed for the chapel. Her body ached with each step, her muscles screaming protest. But her stride was unbroken. Purpose steadied her more than strength. Inside the chapel, the air was stale and cold. Wooden pews still bore the scorch marks from the fire that had once licked through the walls, the same fire they blamed her for. The cross above the altar hung slightly askew, the symbol more of a warning than a welcome. She sat on the front pew and finally let her shoulders drop. She was shaking now, not with fear, with the aftermath, with everything she'd held in since the noose scratched her neck and the rope slipped from the beam. Her hand moved to her belly, now more pronounced beneath the loose folds of her shirt. The child inside her stirred as if sensing the change in her breath. "You still with me?" she whispered. A soft kick answered. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. She leaned forward and rested her elbows on her knees, staring at the dusty floorboards. Her mind replayed the moments, Gray Fox's quiet lessons, the canyon's bitter silence, Martha's flinch, the way Rickley's eyes widened as the mine exploded behind him. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt scorched, like something burned out of her and left only the raw shape behind. Footsteps echoed outside, heavy, hesitant. She didn't rise, just waited. The chapel doors creaked open. Reverend Ezra, tall and gaunt, stepped inside, his hat in his hands, head bowed, as if walking into a funeral. Maybe he was. He stopped a few paces away. Clara Mae. She didn't look up. You gonna try and save me now? I don't reckon I can. He paused. But maybe I can start by saying I was wrong. She exhaled slowly. You stood there. Said nothing. I know. You prayed over their rope. His voice caught. I know that too. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he said, they're all waiting. Out there. Don't know what to do now. Let them sit with it, she murmured. That's what I did. I sat with it in the dirt, with fire and blood and silence. He nodded, shame in every line of his face. What now? Clara finally looked up. Her eyes were clear, steady. I'm not staying. A pause. Ezra tilted his head. And if someone comes looking? Another sheriff, another gang of men thinking a woman can't own land or justice. Clara stood, shoulders square. Then let them come. She walked past him, into the gathering dusk, into the town that had tried to erase her. The people parted for her like water around a stone. No one raised their voice. No one met her gaze for long. Some tipped their hats. A few turned away. But none stopped her. Martha stood at the end of the road, clutching a parcel wrapped in cloth. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed red. I packed food, she said softly. Blankets. Dried pears. Clara took the bundle without thanks. The act didn't forgive the past, but it acknowledged it. She loaded her supplies onto the horse, tightening the straps with steady hands. She moved slower now, careful with the weight she carried. Not just her own. 2 hearts, 2 futures. From the general store, Eli came running, cradling something small. A carved wooden horse, no bigger than a fist. I made it, he said, breathless. For the baby. Clara knelt to his level, took the toy gently. Thank you. He looked up at her, wide-eyed. Are you really a witch? She considered it, then smiled. No, but I might have become something worse. The boy grinned. As she mounted the horse, someone called out. Where will you go? She turned in the saddle, looked out over the town one last time. Anywhere I damn well please. A ripple moved through the crowd. A few nodded. A few looked down. But no one spoke again. Clara nudged the horse forward, past the burned barn, past the schoolhouse she once dreamed of filling with laughter, past the graves marked and unmarked. The desert opened up before her, wide and waiting. Somewhere out there was a place no one had written a story about yet. Somewhere her child could grow up without rope shadows or whispered lies. Somewhere her name wouldn't hang heavy in the air. The stars blinked alive as the last light vanished from the horizon. Behind her, Broken Mesa faded into memory. Ahead, only silence, only space. She didn't need forgiveness. She didn't need praise. She needed the wind on her face and her child's heartbeat beneath her hand. And she had both. She turned her head toward the dark sky and whispered, half to herself, half to the baby. They tried to kill me. But they forgot I was already fighting to be born again. The horse moved into a slow trot, then a steady canter. And Clara Holloway vanished into the desert, not as a victim, but as something the West wasn't ready for. A woman who couldn't be killed. A voice, older now, weathered and warm, rose over the final shot. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. After all, legends like Clara, they ride forever in every gust of wind, in every tale by firelight.